of reproductive systems in colonies. Monogamy is where there's only one queen and there will always only be one queen. This queen is the sole producer of future generations of workers and future reproduction of hires, I guess you could say. Now you have also polygamy, or not polygamy, excuse me, polygamy. In these colonies, the queen that produces the babies, the winged males and females, do not fly outside the colony. Instead, they stay inside the colony for the purpose of mating with each other. This is allowed because genetically, these females and males are unrelated. In this type of species, a queen or a single colony could have 1 to literally millions of queens in it. The queen is able to reproduce asexually and create clones of herself, and then her body is able to take the egg out of a special organ in her body that stores sperm, like in all other queen ants of other types of colonies. And the DNA will be of the male. So when they're produced, yes, they come from the same mother, but genetically, these females and males are unrelated. So they will mate with each other inside the colony, and then those queens that have just mated will also start producing eggs. So you have exponential amounts of eggs being produced in this colony consistently, and also these new queens producing clones of themselves and of the males, and the numbers just skyrocket faster and faster with each new queen. For socialization with an ant doesn't have basic survival skills already implanted in its brain. There are teachers within the colony that teach ants how to do things a certain way. So one way that they communicate the most out of all species is through pheromones. As an ant walks, it'll tap its butt on the ground and leave a pheromone trail. If it finds food, it'll return and it'll tap its butt more and more and more to let other ants know that, hey, there's something here, you should check it out. And as more ants travel down this pheromone trail that's invisible to us, but they can sense on their level, it becomes stronger and stronger. And that's how ants walk in a line. They constantly go on trails, and the more that go, the stronger the trail, and the more workers that will also go. And they also communicate through pheromones for danger. There are different pheromones for different things. There are pheromones for finding a new nest site and making a trail to that, for finding food, and for danger. If a danger pheromone is excreted, you will see all the ants in the entire area go frantic immediately, trying to attack or run away from whatever it is. When it comes to defense mechanisms, there are 3 main types. There's biting, which in some species can actually harm us a lot. There are jaw trapper ants that are used for stitching in some third world countries because of how big their jaws are and how hard they bite and won't release. They'll literally anger the ant, make it bite them in the wound, and then rip off its head and keep it there as stitches. There are also ants that excrete acid through its butt. It'll spray it up in the air towards the eyes or nose of any predators. And then there are ants with stingers that literally have a little pin on the bottom of their butt like a bee would, and they'll sting you and inject a small amount of poison that is not harmful to us in small amounts. Fire ants are one of the main species that have acid spraying abilities, and that's why your skin will break out in a red rash because of the contact with it. And for ants that do have stingers or acid, if they spray it or sting another ant in a wound that they've already bit open, there are some acids that are strong enough to dissolve the insides of an ant and kill it on contact. For colony food production, ants are one of the only other species besides humans on Earth that both farm and herd other insects. In leafcutter ants, you'll see them up in trees cutting leaves, But they don't take the leaves back to eat, they take it to grow a fungal garden, which will produce spores that they will eat from. In this fungal garden, it is very important for cleanliness, and I know you're thinking, how can you be clean with fungus? But this fungus is an edible kind for them, and if any other type of fungus gets on it, it can potentially destroy their entire gardens, and this ant only eats that. It doesn't eat other insects or anything, so if those gardens go, so does the colony. They also herd amphibs, which are little tiny insects that eat honeydew from the stems of plants, and the ants will go over and milk them with their antenna and drink the excreted honeydew from their butt, and generally farm them like we do cattle with milk. Also, one way that ants feed each other is through regurgitation, ultimately. Their back butt is an entire organ for a social stomach. In their torso, they have their personal stomach, but in their butt, they have another stomach, which is where food goes, liquefies, and then when they go back to a colony, they will excrete it to each other through regurgitation and potentially feed the entire colony without all of them having to go out and get it. Colony structure. So a colony's structure can literally go feet down in the ground easily. With a colony structure, they make sure to design for good ventilation, so you'll see long tunnels that just go up and down to make sure air gets to all parts of the colony. In the colony, you will have the garbage pit at the very bottom of the colony where there's the least amount of workers and least amount of chance of disease spreading. That's also where they'll put their dead. They will not eat their dead with risk of infection or disease. And then the queen's chambers are lower in the colony, but not near as low as the garbage pits, of course. And then the further up you go, you have older babies, and then you have food rooms, and then you have the tunnels outside the colony. Okay. So some fun facts. As previously mentioned, the longest queen kept in captivity was 30 years old and is still living today. For every human on Earth, there's 1.6 million ants. If a tunnel collapses on an ant, it'll bring its abdomen up to its torso and rub it together, and it'll create a squeaking noise that only other ants can hear, and they'll be able to go and undig that ant and potentially save their life. And one of the largest ant colonies casted with cement, where they dumped tons of cement down the main entrance and flooded the entire colony with it and undug it. If you brought it to human scale, it'd be the size of London. And that is my presentation.